Hey, close your eyes. You're not in your bed anymore. You're in a boxcar. It smells like rust, piss, and frozen breath. You're 36 hours into a train ride with no windows, no food, and no idea where you're going. You don't know why you're here. One day you were at work, or home, or walking back from the bakery. Then someone tapped your shoulder. And now you're surrounded by strangers with hollow faces and frostbitten toes. The door's been shut since yesterday. The corners of the car are yellow from where people tried to make a bathroom out of nothing. No one talks. No one cries anymore. You're cold, but not the kind of cold you fix with a jacket or a fire. This is bone-deep cold. It's the kind that soaks into your marrow and whispers, "You're not getting out of this." You don't know it yet, but you're headed somewhere called Kolyma, or Vorkuta, or Norilsk. Places you've never heard of. Places people don't come back from. You're not a criminal, but the system doesn't care. You told a joke, you knew the wrong person. You asked too many questions. Or maybe someone wanted your job. Doesn't matter now. In the Soviet Union, innocence is a theory, and the Gulag is reality. This isn't a prison. It's a slow-motion execution stretched out over months, maybe years, maybe forever. If you want to hear more stories like this, give it a like, subscribe. It helps us keep making them. It tells the algorithm you're ready for another long night with the truth. Now, lean back, shut the door. You're not in your room anymore. You're in the Gulag, and the cold has teeth. The train stops. Not with a whistle, not with an announcement, just a lurch, a groan, a final exhale of steam like the machine itself wants no part in this. The door doesn't open right away. It's been shut for 2, maybe 3 days. You've lost track. Could be 5. Time in the dark doesn't behave normally. When it does slide open finally, it's not light that rushes in. It's cold. Not air, not weather. Cold. Like something alive. It slips through the cracks in your coat, under your shirt, past your skin. It wraps around your lungs and squeezes. You're shoved out with everyone else. No names, no orders, just the blunt edge of a rifle nudging your spine. Your boots hit snow, deep, unbroken, the kind that swallows your ankles and doesn't give them back. You look around, white, white, endless white, then black trees on the horizon, all hunched like old men who know better than to hope. No buildings, no signs. Just a line of guards with wool coats, frosted breath, and eyes like dead glass. Someone near you collapses getting out, legs stiff, eyes wide, they don't get back up. No one helps. One of the guards checks for a pulse. He doesn't even bend down. Just kicks the man over with his boot, shrugs, and says something in Russian. You don't speak it. Not yet, but you learn quickly here. Because in the Gulag, words can mean soup, or pain, or the difference between a grave with your name on it and one that's already full. You're marched toward a clearing. No paths, no footprints, just the slow crunch of 50, maybe 60, maybe 100 prisoners moving like ghosts with ankles made of lead. Your clothes aren't warm enough. Your gloves are thin, and you're carrying everything you own which is nothing. Someone coughs. Deep, wet. It doesn't sound new. You glance over. The guy's skin is yellow, his lips cracked, his fingers swollen and red frostbite creeping up his hands like vines. He won't last long. You both know it. He keeps walking anyway, because stopping is worse. Eventually you see it. The camp, if you can call it that. Barbed wire, watchtowers, a few wooden barracks huddled together like they're trying to keep warm. Smoke curls from metal chimneys, thick, greasy. It doesn't smell like wood. It smells like burning rubber and something else, something can't name, but your body recoils from anyway. A bell rings. You don't know why. But everyone flinches, even the guards. You get to the gate, it's not opened for you, it's unlocked, with a sound like someone pulling teeth out of steel. Then it swings wide. You're not told where to go. You're not given numbers or clothes. You're funneled, like cattle, like meat. Inside it's worse. Not because of what you see, but because of what you smell. Rot, sweat, smoke, exhaustion. The kind that seeps into the wood and never leaves. A voice calls out a list of names. Russian, one by one. If you hear yours or something that sounds close, you raise your hand. Don't, you get a baton across the ribs. Your name gets butchered. You raise your hand anyway. The guard doesn't look at you, just grunts and moves on. You're handed a blanket, it's wet. You're handed a piece of bread, it's frozen. You're handed a cup of something that might be soup. It's grey, thin, tastes like salt and metal. You eat it anyway, because your stomach doesn't care anymore. Your first real moment of horror isn't the cold, or the guards, or the guns. It's the silence. Inside the barracks, no one talks. You'd think 100 men jammed together in a wooden box would be loud, but it's not. They move in shifts, sleep in piles, bodies stacked in bunks built for livestock. You find a corner on the floor, curl into it like an animal and pretend it's enough. It isn't. Someone next to you dies that night. You don't know his name. You don't know how. You don't ask. No one does. The body stays there until morning. Then it's dragged out, dumped behind the mess hall, and replaced by another. It's not personal. Nothing here is. You wake up sore, cold, hungry, again. You don't remember sleeping. You don't remember dreaming. The bell rings. Work call. You're herded into line. The guards shout. You don't understand the words, but you understand the tone. You walk. The forest waits. It always does. Today it's logging, axes, saws, chains and sleds. You've never chopped a tree in your life. Doesn't matter. You're told to swing. So you swing. Wrong angle, wrong form. Doesn't matter. The tree doesn't move. Your arm screams. You swing again. One of the guards laughs. Not because it's funny, because it's the first entertainment he's had in days. You slip. The blade misses. The handle cracks your shin. You grunt. No one helps. They just keep swinging. You do too, because if you don't meet your quota, no food. That's the rule. They don't even hide it. No wood, no bread. And eventually your body starts bargaining. Pain stops mattering. You swing with rhythm. You bleed and ignore it. You sweat in the snow. At some point your hands split open. The axe handle goes slick. You don't let go, because letting go means stopping. And stopping means punishment. You've heard stories of the pit, of solitary, of frost, of hands frozen solid then shattered like glass. You don't want to believe them. But here, disbelief is a luxury. You keep swinging. Hours pass, or days. Your concept of time is gone. When the bell rings again, it's not relief. It's just another shift. You eat dinner standing up, because sitting takes too long. And there's only so much bread, only so much soup, only so much time before the next bell. Someone collapses by the mess hall. Face down in the snow. The guards step over him. So do you, because this place isn't about survival. It's about decay. Managed, measured, scheduled. You crawl back to your bunk. If it's still there, if someone hasn't taken it, you lie down, close your eyes, and for a moment, just one, you imagine warmth. A room, a blanket, a stove, a voice saying your name like it matters. Then someone coughs nearby. The cold slips back in through the walls, and you remember where you are. Welcome to the Gulag. No one here is free, not even the dead. You remember the knock. Not loud, not angry, just 3 short raps, like a neighbour asking for sugar. Except it was 2:13 a.m, and neighbours don't knock at 2 a.m. in Stalin's Russia. You didn't answer right away. Nobody does. You wait. Hope. Pretend you didn't hear it. But the knock comes again. Louder. Meaner. You think about hiding something. Anything. A book, a letter, a photograph with the wrong person in it. Too late. They don't wait for doors to open. They open them for you. 2 men in long coats, one with a clipboard, the other with a pistol. They don't smile. They don't shout. They just say your name. Wrong pronunciation. Doesn't matter. You nod. That's all it takes. Come. You ask why. They don't answer. You ask where. They don't answer. They don't have to. You know. You're not charged. Not officially. Later on the papers it'll say anti-Soviet agitation, or suspicion of espionage, or counter-revolutionary behaviour. All phrases that mean nothing. All phrases that mean you're done. Maybe someone reported you. Maybe you said something wrong at the factory. Maybe your cousin was arrested last month and now guilt runs in the bloodline. You don't know. You'll never know. That's part of the cruelty. Not just the pain, but the lack of reason. The confusion. The way the world unravels in a moment and no one explains why. They take you to a basement. Not a jail, just a room. Concrete walls, flickering bulb, no chair, no bed, no clock. You stand. For hours. Eventually they come back. Not to question, to accuse. They ask if you are planning to meet with Western agents. You say no. They ask if you wrote letters critical of the state. You say no. They ask if you believe in the party. You say yes. Too fast. They write something down. You're already guilty. You beg. Explain. Say it's a mistake. They nod. Smile even. Then hit you. Not hard, just enough. A reminder. Words don't help here. Eventually they give you a confession. Already typed. Just sign at the bottom. You refuse. So they wait. No food. No water. No light. No sleep. Day 3 you sign. It doesn't feel like giving in. It feels like escaping. But you don't escape. You get transferred. Another basement. Another hallway. Another knock. Another name on a clipboard. You're loaded into the train with 50 others. Most look like you. Normal, tired, scared. None of them criminals. Not really. One guy was caught telling a joke. Another said the wrong thing about a quota. One just had the same last name as a political dissident. Now you all wear the same label. Enemy of the people. The irony burns, because you've never been political. You went to work, paid taxes, stood during the anthem. You clapped when you were supposed to. You didn't ask questions. That was your crime. You didn't do anything, and that was enough. There's a saying, the nail that sticks out gets hammered. But here, the nail that stays flat gets stepped on anyway. In the dark of the train you whisper to yourself, I didn't do anything wrong. And the guy next to you, eyes sunken, lips cracked, says, that's what makes you dangerous. You don't ask what he means. You already know. This place doesn't punish actions. It punishes doubt. It punishes possibility. The state doesn't need proof. It needs obedience. And if it can't get that, it settles for your disappearance. You hear stories. about trials that last 10 minutes, about men executed for owning foreign newspapers, about women sentenced for smiling at the wrong person. You don't know what's true anymore, only that none of it sounds surprising. Eventually a guard comes through with a list, starts shouting names. Some get pulled from the car, dragged outside. You hear a single shot, then silence. You don't breathe for a full minute. The man across from you, missing 2 fingers, mutters, "They call it a transport list. But not all transports go north." You know what he means. Sometimes they skip the camp, go straight to the forest, and leave behind nothing but paperwork. The next morning, or what you think is morning, they pass out cards. Blue for labour, red for death, white for something in between. You get blue, relief, then guilt, because the guy next to you got red, and he's only 17. You don't see him again. The guards don't explain. They don't need to. By now you understand. Justice is a rumour. Mercy is a myth. And fairness? Fairness was executed 2 winters ago. You arrive at the camp with your new identity. A number. 3 letters and 6 digits. It's stamped on your record. Your bunk. Your chest. Your name isn't used anymore. And it doesn't matter what your life was before. Teacher, baker, mechanic. Gone. Here, you're a worker, a unit, a liability. Your job is to endure until you don't. The other prisoners don't ask what you did, because they already know the answer. Nothing. And that's the terrifying truth. You didn't have to break a law. You just had to exist. In the wrong place. At the wrong time. Under the wrong regime. You lie awake that night. Back against splintered wood. Face turned to a window that's been nailed shut. And you finally realise you weren't arrested. You were selected. Because somewhere, someone needed a body. For labour. For numbers. For control. And that body was yours. You've been on the train for 3 days. Or 4. Or maybe more. There's no clock, no light, no voice telling you when one day ends and the next begins. Time stopped back at the platform. The first thing you noticed, no windows. Just 4 wooden walls and a sliding metal door bolted shut from the outside. It's not a passenger car. It's a livestock wagon. Except the livestock was treated better. You were crammed in with 30, maybe 40 others. Elbow to elbow, knee to back, like human bricks stacked, pressed, forgotten. There's a hole in the floor, a toilet technically, but after the first 12 hours it stopped being functional. Now it's just part of the smell. The air is thick, too thick to breathe without tasting it. It clings to your tongue. Sweat, fear, excrement, urine, blood. A stew of misery. Every few hours the train lurches, then sits, then groans forward again, like even it wants to turn back. You don't know how far you've gone, only that you're going east. Always east. That's the direction of erasure, the end of the map. There are no guards inside the car. They lock the door and leave you to rot. You hear them walk the tops of the train, sometimes boots scraping steel. You hear them smoke and laugh outside when the train stops. Sometimes you hear gunshots. Short, sharp, final. And then the train moves again. Inside, people talk less with each passing hour. At first there were whispers, conversations, prayers. Now it's just breathing, moaning, coughing, and the occasional scream in someone's sleep. No one has eaten. They toss in a bucket of water twice a day, or what passes for water. Grey, slushy, tastes like rust. You drink it anyway. You dream about bread, not steak, not chocolate, just a crust. A dry, stale, ugly heel of bread. It becomes the most beautiful thing in your mind. A man in the corner hasn't stood up since the second day. He shivers. Talks to someone who isn't there. His eyes are cracked open, but they're not looking at you. They're looking at before. You envy him. You try to sleep, but there's no space. So you sit. You sleep like prisoners sleep upright, eyes open, one arm looped around your knees. You sleep in seconds. 5 here, 10 there. Just enough to not die. Not enough to live. Someone dies. You don't know when. One moment they were breathing. The next, not. No one screams. No one reacts. They just shift to make room. The body stays. There's no room to move it. No point. You cover their face with a coat. That's all the burial they'll get. The train stops again. Daylight slices in through the open door. It blinds you. You squint. Snow. As far as the eye can see. A landscape built entirely from silence. No trees, no birds, no fences. Just snow and sky and the tracks behind you. They pull the body out, drag it like luggage, then slam the door shut. Dark again. It takes a moment for your eyes to adjust. Not just to the dark, but to the fact that this is your life now. This box. These people. This journey. There are no windows because you're not meant to look out. You're not meant to see where you're going. Just go, obediently, silently, like freight. You hear stories. Whispers pass between the living and the almost dead. About the destinations. Kolyma, Vorkuta, Magadan. Names that echo like curses. Kolyma, they say, is the worst, the coldest, the farthest. 10 years in Kolyma isn't a sentence. It's an obituary. Delayed. You ask someone near you where he thinks you're headed. He shrugs, then says, "If we were going to shoot us, they'd have done it by now." You nod. He's probably right. But it's not a comfort. Because what they're planning might be worse. The train keeps moving. You don't even hear the engine anymore. Just the clunk of wheels. Steel on steel. The heartbeat of exile. At some point, someone sings. A woman. Soft. Shaky. A lullaby. Or maybe a hymn. You don't know the words, but the melody hurts. Because it reminds you of before. Of comfort. Of a world where singing didn't sound like a funeral. She stops. No one claps. No one asks her to sing more. Because even music is dangerous here. It makes you feel, and feelings get you killed. Another night passes. Or a day. Doesn't matter. Your legs are swollen. Your spine aches. Your lips are cracked. You're thinner. Already. The boxcar has turned you into a husk. Not even at the Gulag yet, and already you've begun to vanish. When the train finally stops for real, you don't cheer. You don't move. You just wait. The door opens. Snow whips in sideways. You see it. The camp. Wooden towers. Barbed wire. Smoke rising from low chimneys. The guards are waiting, not like jailers. Like undertakers. One of them yells a command. People start to move. You stand. Barely. Your knees pop. Your back screams. You walk to the edge. The snow bites your face. And as your boots hit the frozen earth burn, you realise something. The train didn't take you to the Gulag. The train was the Gulag. Just the first one. A moving cell. A test. To see who breaks before the gates even open. And tomorrow you start dying slower, in wood, in iron, in cold so deep it whispers your name every night. And the road ahead, it doesn't end. Not here, not soon, not for you. The gate doesn't open for you. It consumes you. Wooden posts, rusted barbed wire, a tower overhead with a man watching through binoculars, not moving, not blinking, like a scarecrow with a rifle. You pass under it like a dog being let into a kennel. No words, no welcome. Just a sign, faded Cyrillic. 3 words you can't read. Someone near you whispers the translation. Labour sets you free. You've heard that phrase before. Different language. Same lie. The guards shout something. You don't understand, but your legs obey anyway. Because language isn't needed when someone has a gun. You're herded into the intake building. Grey. Frozen. The inside feels colder than outside. There are benches, but no one sits. You're too afraid. Or too respectful. Or maybe just too tired to bend your knees. A man in uniform barks names from a clipboard. One by one, prisoners are called forward. Searched, stripped. You watch the first one go. He takes off his coat, his shirt, his shoes. Down to nothing. They check everything. Mouth, ears, fingernails. He's not a person. He's a container. You go next. You don't protest. You don't argue. You just undress. The cold hits harder without the illusion of warmth. Your skin contracts. Your fingers go stiff. They take your clothes, your bag, your documents, your past. In return you get 1 cotton shirt, 1 wool jacket, pants 2 sizes too large, a pair of boots that don't match, a number, stamped, tagged, catalogued, just like livestock. You hold the bundle like it matters. It doesn't. These are rags, salvaged from the last man who died in them. Maybe yesterday, maybe this morning. The stench tells you they weren't washed, just shaken off and reassigned. They send you to the delousing station. A room, a barrel of steaming liquid. They make you dunk your new clothes, then you put them on wet, because dry clothes are a privilege, and you're not here for privilege. A guard hands you a spoon, just one. He says something sharp in Russian. You catch a word. Lose it, no food. The spoon is yours now. Your only utensil. Your only tool. Your ticket to calories. You're allowed to carve your number into it. So they know it's yours. You're not allowed to sharpen it. They'll check. You wonder how many people tried. How many spoons became weapons? How many spoons dug into walls or wrists or necks? You move to the photo room, not for a souvenir, for the record. A metal stool. A dirty sheet as a backdrop. 1 flash. Click. That's you now. Eyes hollow. Cheeks sunken. Posture collapsing under the weight of fear and whatever this place is turning you into. No smile. No second take. The man with the camera stamps your card and waves you away. Another prisoner takes your place. You're escorted outside again. The sun is gone. Or maybe it never rose. Hard to tell through the smoke. You see the barracks. Long buildings made of splintered wood and leaking tin roofs. You're assigned one. Number 7. Lucky. Inside it's darker than outside. Narrow aisles. Triple bunks. Stench of mould, sweat and desperation. There's no bedding. No sheets. Just a wooden platform with a thin, lice-ridden blanket. 2 men already occupy your assigned bunk, 1 sleeping. 1 coughing something wet into his palm. He wipes it on the floor and doesn't apologise. No one introduces themselves. No one asks your name. You crawl into the bottom bunk and pretend it's shelter. The The boards creak. Your breath clouds in the air. You don't sleep. You close your eyes. You try. But sleep doesn't come easy when the man above you moans through fever dreams, and the one next to you whispers numbers under his breath. Numbers of days, or bodies, or years left on his sentence. You don't ask. You don't want to know. At some point the guard kicks in the door. He yells a word. Podium. Wake up. Like you ever slept. You get in line, follow the others, to the mess. They hand you a tin bowl. You get a ladle of watery soup, a crust of black bread, a pinch of salt. You eat with your spoon, carefully, quickly. It tastes like dirt, but dirt with calories, and calories mean you get to keep moving. Someone drops their spoon. It clangs. Everyone freezes. The guard picks it up, stares at the man, then throws the spoon into the stove. The man pleads. He's ignored. No spoon, no food. That's the rule. The man doesn't eat that day or the next. By the third day, he's gone. Nobody says goodbye. Because goodbye assumes someone's listening. You're sent to orientation. A wooden shack. A blackboard. A man in a greatcoat explaining the rules in 5 languages. Work quotas. Meal deductions. Punishments. Every rule ends the same way. Fail no food. Resist punishment. Repeat execution. Simple. Elegant. Efficient. Then they show you the wall. Names. Numbers. Photos. All marked with a red slash. You don't need to ask what that means. You've learned enough already. They let you back into the yard. The wind has teeth. You're assigned to a work crew. Tomorrow you'll be breaking rocks. The day after, hauling timber. The day after that, if you're still standing, maybe you'll be lucky enough to shovel snow in a place where snow never ends. You look up. The guard tower blinks. The light sweeps across your face. Not to blind you, just to remind you. We see you. And suddenly you understand what this place is. It's not a prison. It's an ecosystem. Of hunger, of fear, of silence. A factory that doesn't make products. It makes broken men, one day at a time. You walk back to your barrack, boots crunching snow, joints aching from standing still too long. You step inside. The air's warmer than outside, but it doesn't feel like warmth. It feels like rot. You lie back in your bunk, stare at the ceiling. A plank above your head reads something scratched in with a nail. You don't know who wrote it, but you know it's true. It says, "You leave your name at the gate." And below that, "Hope doesn't make it this far. Night doesn't exist here." Not really. There's darkness, yes, but not sleep, not silence, not peace. Because every night, without fail, it wakes up. The tower, the eye, the sweeping god of the Gulag, the searchlight. It hums when it turns. Soft, mechanical, almost gentle if it wasn't a warning. You lie in your bunk, eyes closed, blanket pulled up to your chin, and you feel it. Long before it touches you, a warm halo of dread, moving slowly across barracks like a predator sniffing for motion. Cuts through the frost on the window, sweeps across the wall, creeps up your face. You pretend to sleep. Even though your body's rigid, your breath shallow, and your eyes locked shut. Because if you're caught awake after curfew, they don't ask why. They don't care if it's a cough, or a nightmare, or if your bunkmate groaned in his sleep. They care that you moved. And movement is guilt. And guilt is punishment. Always. You learn to stay still. Perfectly still. like a corpse that hasn't realised it's dead yet. It's not just the light. It's what the light means. The men in the towers never sleep either. They trade shifts like playing cards, swap rifles, sip from enamel mugs filled with something that burns. But they never look away. Some have binoculars, some have floodlights. Some just lean over the railing and stare, all night, every night. You can't see their faces, but you feel them, watching. And you know somewhere, right now, one of them is looking directly at you. Not because you're important, but because you're there, and that's enough. You don't get used to it. Not really. You adapt, yes. But used to it? That would require forgetting what privacy felt like. And part of you still remembers. The way a locked door felt like a shield. The way your bathroom was your own. The way your thoughts were yours. Not anymore. Here, even your thoughts feel like they're being scanned. You think about something and glance at the wall like it's listening. Because maybe it is. Because there are ears here, and some of them don't wear uniforms. The man next to you, he snores like a dying horse, eats with both hands and hasn't spoken a full sentence in days. But he might be the eyes of the tower. He might whisper your name when the light's not watching. Might tell them you muttered something in your sleep. Might get you sent to solitary over a dream you didn't control. So you stop talking. You stop thinking out loud. You learn to kill even your silence before it's suspicious. In time, you forget what a casual word feels like. Every sentence becomes a transaction. Every nod a negotiation. Every glance a roll of the dice. And the light keeps moving. Back and forth. Back and forth. Like a pendulum counting down to nothing. Some men try to fight it. They throw coats over the windows. Dig small holes under bunks for privacy. Whisper too loud. They don't last. The guards find them. Always. Sometimes the punishment is simple, a beating. Other times, it's worse. Solitary. In a wooden box so small you can't sit, can't lie down, can't stretch your knees. Just crouch. For hours. In darkness. Until your body forgets how to be upright. Or until you start to hallucinate that the walls are breathing. And when they pull you out, if they pull you out, you're not the same. Nobody is. Because here, the surveillance isn't about safety. It's about breaking rhythm. About making sure you never forget that you're owned. Not in chains. Worse. Watched. Constantly. Endlessly. With no chance to hide. There's a man in your barracks, tall, heavy-set. He talks too much. Laughs too loud. Stares too long. At first, everyone avoided him. Now they listen. Because he gets extra bread sometimes. Because he never loses his spoon. Because he always knows when inspections are coming. You see where this is going. You say nothing. But you sleep lighter. He doesn't need to catch you doing something wrong. He just needs to say you did. And that's enough. It always is. Because the guards don't care about proof. They care about example, discipline, spectacle, fear. And you, trembling in your bed as the light passes again, are exactly where they want you. Obedient, exhausted, alone. Some nights the light lingers, just hovers, over your bunk for 5 seconds, 10, a full minute. You don't move. You don't breathe. Your spine knots up. Your heart punches against your ribs like it wants out. But you stay still, like prey, like bait, like something that was once human. And then, finally, it slides away. You don't sigh. You don't relax. because you know it'll be back. It always comes back. You ask someone once very quietly how long the towers have been watching. He says, they were built before the barracks. You don't ask again, because that makes sense. You're not here to live. You're here to be seen, measured, controlled. And if you think about anything else, anything more, you'll lose whatever tiny piece of sanity this place hasn't already swallowed. You turn your face to the wall, pull the blanket up, close your eyes, but you don't sleep. You wait for the light, for the next breath, for the next shift of boots in the tower above. Because out here, in this frozen nowhere, the bars aren't steel. They're made of glass, of light, of unblinking eyes and silent judgment. And the worst part, eventually you forget what it was like not to be watched. And when that happens, you stop watching yourself. You've never really known cold. Not until now. You thought you had. You've shivered waiting for a bus, had numb fingers walking to school in January, maybe cursed the wind once while scraping frost off a windshield. That was weather. This is war. Because here, the cold doesn't happen to you. It hunts you. From the moment you step outside the barracks in the morning, if you even got to sleep, it's there. Biting. Not nipping. Not brushing. Biting. It chews your ears first, then your cheeks, then your fingers, through the thin cloth of whatever passed for gloves in this place. The wind isn't loud. It doesn't scream. It whispers. But that whisper feels like glass against your skin. You exhale and your breath immediately freezes on the inside of your collar. By midday, your coat is stiff with a shell of rime and ice. It cracks when you move. You've become a walking icicle in a borrowed uniform. They make you work in it anyway. The guards don't flinch. They stand in wool and leather and thick fur hats, while you carry timber in boots with holes and pants that feel like paper. Some mornings they let you warm up. 10 minutes of marching in place, slapping your arms, jumping in place like fools. You don't warm up. You just shake faster. Then it's to the pits, or the woods, or the mines. You shovel snow that keeps coming back, move rocks that freeze to the ground. Try to grip metal tools with hands that forgot what fingers feel like. And the cold waits, because it knows you'll slip. You'll drop something. You'll freeze for a second too long. That's when it takes you. You feel it in the tips of your ears first. They stop hurting. That's the danger sign. Because pain means life. Numbness means death is working its way in. Your fingers follow. Then your toes. Your boots are soaked. They froze stiff 2 days ago. Your socks haven't been dry in weeks. You walk on pain, every step a crunch. Not the snow, your skin, cracking, bleeding, refreezing. You feel blisters forming under your toes, but you don't take your boots off. You can't. If you do, you might not get them back on. So you leave them. Let your feet rot, because gangrene is slow, but frostbite is patient, and the guards don't hand out new feet. You learn tricks. You put newspaper in your boots if you can find some. You wrap your hands in spare rags. You huddle next to the stove in the mess hall for 5 seconds of fake heat before someone shoves you away. Sometimes you breathe into your gloves to warm your fingers. That's a mistake. The moisture freezes instantly, turns your fingers into glass. You never make the same mistake twice, because you don't get to. Some men do worse. You see a guy press his hands against the exhaust pipe of a generator. Sizzles, burns, blisters. He doesn't scream. He just stares. Because third-degree burns mean no work. No work means rest. Maybe even the infirmary. He gets 3 days in the barracks with bandages and mouldy bread. Then he dies anyway. Infection. Fever. Cold winds again. You think about doing it too. Just once. Just enough. But you don't. Not yet. You keep walking. Keep working. Keep pretending your fingers are still there. You've started to forget how warmth feels. You can remember pain, but not heat. You dream about it sometimes. Bathwater, fireplaces, coffee mugs. But they don't make sense anymore. Your brain scrambles the memory. The warmth turns to steam, then fog, then snow. Even in your dreams, the cold wins. Some mornings you wake up and find a bunkmate frozen beside you. Still curled, still breathing maybe. Maybe not. You poke him with your spoon. He doesn't move. You call for the guard. They don't rush. They've seen this 1,000 times. They drag the body out like garbage, toss it in the snow, add it to the pile. You watch. You say nothing. Because what would you say? What can you say? This isn't punishment. This isn't negligence. This is design. The cold is a tool, a method, a slow, consistent executioner that doesn't cost the state a single ruble. The paperwork will say exhaustion, or infection, maybe failure to adapt. But you know the truth. He froze. He stood still 1 minute too long, blinked too slowly, forgot to breathe deeply enough to keep his chest moving. And now he's gone. One less mouth to feed, one less bunk to fill. One more name crossed off a list in an office hundreds of miles away. You sit by the stove that night. It's barely warm. Just enough to keep the wind from killing you instantly. You hold your hands close. The skin is purple. Your nails blackened. You can't feel the tips anymore. You ask the man next to you how cold it is. He doesn't answer right away. Then he says, "Doesn't matter. Past -40, the numbers stop meaning anything." You nod. Because that's true. It could be -50, -60. Your bones don't care anymore, they just creak. Your breath frosts on your lips, then freezes there. Cracks when you smile. You stop smiling. That's easier. The bell rings. Work call. Again. You stand. Your joints scream. Your boots crunch. Your spine groans. And outside the cold waits, right where you left it, grinning. Patient. And very, very permanent. There's no paycheck. No reward. No thank you. All you get if you survive the shift is a bowl of soup and a crust of bread. And not even for free. You have to earn it. With sweat. With blisters. With hours your body wasn't designed to endure. Every morning it's the same. The bell rings. You shuffle out of the barracks with everyone else, dragging your limbs like wet rope. Your body screams before the work even starts. Because it never stopped. Because there's no recovery here. Just forward. Just quotas. And if you can't meet the quota, you don't eat. They don't hide the rule. They post it. Plain, direct, unforgiving. 120% full ration, 100% base ration, less cut. No one explains what cut means. You figure it out quickly. Half a ladle of soup. No bread. Maybe some gristle if you're lucky. The calories are barely enough to sit upright, let alone swing a pickaxe. You lose weight fast. Everyone does. Not gradually. Not like a diet. Like rot. Your skin peels. Your belt cinches tighter. Your ribs start showing and no one thinks it's poetic. It's math. And the math here kills. You work in a logging brigade. You're handed an axe with a dull blade and a handle that's already cracked. You cut trees that don't want to fall. Frozen birch. Steel-trunked pines. Every swing costs you something. A breath. A heartbeat. A little bit of life. By the third hour, your hands are raw. Your breath rattles. You're dizzy, but you can't stop. Because you know what happens if your pile's too small. You've seen it. The list on the clipboard. The scribbled red line next to a name. The nod from the foreman. And then the ration cut. No discussion. No appeal. Just hunger. Which is worse than pain. Hunger wraps itself around you like a blanket made of barbed wire. You don't think clearly. You forget words. You hallucinate smells that aren't there, bread baking, meat frying, coffee steaming. Your mouth waters and it hurts. You'll do anything to avoid that. So you keep swinging, even when your shoulders lock. Even when your vision fades. You keep moving. Some cheat. They sneak into other piles. Steal logs. Fake numbers. It never lasts. Someone always rats. And then you don't just lose food. You lose teeth. Freedom. Sometimes a finger. Sometimes all of you. One day, a man in your brigade collapses. He's been sick for weeks. Still showed up every day. Still tried. Today his body gives up first. He doesn't fall like a man. He folds like a tent, knees buckling, face planting in the snow, motionless. You rush to him, kneel, call his name. The guard doesn't. He walks over, looks down, kicks the man over with the toe of his boot, then glances at the clipboard. Quota not met. That's all he says. Then he walks away. You stay there, longer than you should. You know better. Compassion costs calories. But something in you hasn't died yet. You roll the man onto his back. His lips are blue, his eyes wide. Frost on his lashes. Still warm. Barely. You whisper something, a prayer maybe. Or a curse. You don't know anymore. Then you stand, pick up your axe, and swing. Because you didn't meet quota. And you still can. You finish the shift. Claps in the snow. Get back in line. You reach the mess and hold out your bowl. The ladle dips, then pauses. The cook a prisoner like he checks your badge. Your number. Your brigade's count. Then nods. You get soup. It's thin. More water than anything else. A few floating scraps. Maybe a piece of potato if you're lucky. You don't ask what the meat is. If there even is any. You eat with your spoon. Fast. Not because it tastes good. Because you don't trust your hands to keep holding it. And if you drop it, you lose everything. Across from you, someone is scraping the bowl clean with their finger, licking the edge. Desperate. They didn't meet quota. You look at their arms. Thin. Shaking. You know what comes next. Tomorrow they'll try to work again. But weaker. Slower. And the day after that? No ration at all. A death spiral. And there's nothing romantic about it. No dramatic fall. No tearful farewell. Just another body in the snow. Another number on a clipboard. Another bunk emptied before sunrise. You wash your bowl in the slush outside the mess. It stings your fingers. You hold onto the spoon like it's your child. Then back to the barracks. The bell rings again. Lights out. You crawl into your bunk. You close your eyes. And all you can see are trees, logs, numbers, spoons, empty bowls, and hunger. Hunger sitting next to you, staring, smiling, waiting for you to misquote her. Just once. Because that's all it takes. One slow day, one bad cough, one twist of the ankle, and the rations vanish. Then the strength. Then you. There's a man who shares your bunk. Not the top, not the bottom, the same one. Because when the camp gets crowded, and it always gets crowded, they start doubling up. You don't know his real name. He told you one, but you're not sure it was the truth. He has a limp and a scar under his chin and eyes that don't blink fast enough. He's funny, smiles too easily, talks when no one else does. And somehow he always knows things. When inspections are coming, which guards are violent, where the warmest spot in the barracks is during winter wind. He helps you once. Your hands were too numb to button your jacket. He did it for you without a word. That bought him a sliver of your trust. But not all of it. Because here, trust is like bread. Rare, risky, and best hoarded. You talk sometimes, late at night, when the lights are dim and the others are snoring. He tells you about his wife, his farm, the factory he worked at before someone accused him of hoarding grain. It sounds real. Too real. He listens when you talk too. About home, family. A name you're trying not to forget. He nods. Asks questions. Too many sometimes. That's the first warning. No one asks that much unless they're interested in more than just your company. Still, when the days stretch too long and the cold digs into your bones, you let yourself believe he's a friend. Because the silence is worse. Because being alone in your head here can kill you faster than frostbite. You start noticing things. He never gets punished. Even when he misses quota, nothing happens. He eats. He always eats. He carries a notebook sometimes. Says it's for poetry. Says it helps him stay sane. You ask to read some. He smiles. Says he lost the last page. He changes the subject. You don't press. You don't need to. The second warning comes when a man in your brigade disappears. Not transferred. Not executed. Just gone. You remember what he said the night before. That the guards are thinning rations on purpose. That someone needs to report it. That the party should know. The next morning he's not there. Your bunkmate? Said he didn't hear anything. Didn't see anything. Shrugs. That's the Gulag, he says. People vanish. But his eyes don't quite meet yours. And later that night, when he thinks you're asleep, you hear him whispering to someone outside. Low. Quick. Measured. You never see who he talks to. Shadows and footsteps fading into snow. That's the third warning. And 3 is enough. You stop talking, start watching. He notices. Of course he does. He's good at reading people. He starts testing you. Says things. Provokes. Mentions Stalin's name with just a hint of sarcasm. Watches how you react. You don't. Your face becomes a wall. Your voice turns hollow. He laughs it off. Just jokes, he says, but you both know better. You've heard of stool pigeons, informants, men planted in the barracks to listen, to write, to whisper. They say every camp has them. Some are forced, some volunteer, some just do it to survive, because betrayal pays in calories, and calories buy time. You try to remember everything you've said to him, every word, every glance, every curse muttered under your breath when the guards were too far to hear. You wonder if it's too late. You stop sleeping deeply. You turn your back to him in the bunk, but you don't sleep. You wait. One night he touches your shoulder. says your name, softly, too softly. You don't respond. You just lie there, staring at the wall. After a minute, he pulls away. You hear him sigh. You hear him mutter something you can't make out, and you don't want to know, because now every word might be a knife. You begin to count the others, the ones who talk too much, who smile too easily, who never get in trouble. You start to realize it's not just the guards watching, it's the prisoners too. Everyone is a potential report, a note on a desk, a file in a folder that you'll never see but might one day kill you. There's no safety in numbers, no solidarity, only suspicion, only survival. A man once told you, the Gulag doesn't punish you for crimes, it punishes you for trust. Now you understand, because every bond is a gamble. Every friendship might be a noose. You still share the bunk, still nod when he speaks, still laugh when he makes jokes. But now your laugh is hollow, practiced. Like everything else in this place, you've learned not to trust, not to confide, not to hope. You don't ask questions anymore. You don't answer them either. And when he hands you your coat one morning with a smile, you check the pockets before putting it on, just in case. No one dies dramatically in the Gulag. Not really. There's no music, no noble last breath, no sweeping speech. They die quietly, slowly, from things you wouldn't think could kill a man, like soup. It starts with the bowl. Every meal you stand in line, cold wind in your face, metal spoon clenched in your hand like it's a weapon because it is. You step up to the window. The cook, another prisoner, barely looks at you. He scoops, drops whatever's in the pot into your bowl. It splashes. A brownish liquid, some stringy vegetable, maybe a speck of meat if the day's good, but most days aren't. It smells like boiled water and wet rags. Still, you clutch it like treasure, because in this place, it is. Soup isn't just food, it's life. It's control, it's status, it's something to fight for, to steal, to kill over, and some do. One winter evening, a man in your barrack's long face, crooked teeth, eats too slow. His hands tremble. He pauses after a few spoonfuls, breath fogging. Tired, sick. The guy next to him watches, then reaches, takes the bowl. Just like that. Bold. Casual. Not violently. Just takes it. The first man says nothing. Just stares. Not at the thief. At the soup. His own. His last. The thief finishes it. Licks the bowl clean. Sets it down. No apology. No guilt. Just hunger, satisfied. You watch this unfold from 3 bunks away. You expect a fight. A scream. A shove. There isn't one. The man just lays down, closes his eyes. By morning he's dead. No wounds, no blood. Just empty, like the bowl. You learn quickly. It doesn't take poison. Doesn't take a knife. Just a missing meal. Just one more day without calories. That's all. And in that way, a man can kill another man. With soup. No sound. No spectacle. Just absence. Just nothing. You see it happen again. And again. And again. Sometimes it's not stolen outright. Sometimes it's bargained away. One man trades his ration for a cigarette, or a pair of dry socks, or a promise of protection. He thinks he's being clever, that he can make it up tomorrow. He can't. Tomorrow he's weaker, slower, falls behind. And then the next day, He's gone. Another quota missed. Another ration denied. Death isn't loud here. It's just late. That's how soup kills. Quietly, efficiently, repeatedly. You remember the first time someone asked for yours? Not begged, not cried, just asked. Said, "I'm starving, brother. Let me have a taste." You wanted to. You really did. You hesitated. Just a second. That second was too long. He saw it in your face. That moment of doubt. That flicker of no. And his eyes changed. He smiled. Said, "Don't worry, I get it." Then walked away. 2 days later, your boots were missing. Stolen. Not by him. But you suspect he said something. To someone. You never found them. Had to work with rags tied around your feet until the infirmary noticed. You never hesitated again. You learned the rule. You don't share food. Not if you want to live. That rule doesn't make you a monster. It makes you a survivor. Because here, kindness is dangerous. Mercy is a crack in your armour. And one crack is enough for the cold or someone hungrier to get in. You hear stories, always in whispers, about men who diluted their soup, poured half back into the pot, so others could have more. They didn't last a week. Good men die faster here, not because they're weak, but because they try to carry others. And this place was built to break anything being carried. The guards know this. They count on it. They set quotas higher than humanly possible. Give rations just below what's sustainable. They let hunger do the disciplining. No need for beatings. If a man's starving, he'll police himself. He'll sell out his friend. Steal. Kill. Beg. Or worse, stay silent. Because silence is the final stage. When you don't even ask anymore. When you look at someone eating and don't say a word. Just watch. Just hope. Just wait. For them to stop. For them to sleep. For them to die. You've done it too. Everyone has. That night you lay in your bunk holding your spoon like a relic. A holy thing. The one object they let you keep. Your only possession. And you think, this little curve of steel, this lifeless mass-produced object, has more control over your survival than anything else in the world. You've sharpened it slightly. Not enough to be noticed, but enough to use if you have to. It's not a weapon. Not yet. But it's close. And some night, maybe, just maybe, that soup will be the last straw. And someone will try to take it. And you'll have to choose. Your life. Or theirs. And you already know the answer. Because this isn't about right or wrong. It's about calories. And teeth. And winter. And the quiet violence of hunger. Because in the Gulag, even soup has a body count. You stop speaking much after the 3rd month. Not because they tell you to. Not because you're scared of being overheard. But because you realise it doesn't help. Words don't matter here. Words are too soft. Too slow. Too polite for this place. Here, there's only one language everyone understands. Pain. It's faster than Russian. More honest than any dialect. And everyone's fluent. You feel it before you hear it. A grunt. A pop. A sharp, brittle snap from across the yard. You don't need to look. You know what happened. Someone lifted too much. Stepped wrong. Collapsed. The guards don't move. They wait. Then someone yells, not in panic, but in procedure. Down. That's it. No name. No explanation. 2 men carry him off like lumber. Another mouth closed. another shift short. Pain is currency here. The man who limps earns fewer beatings. The one who coughs blood gets a smaller quota. The guards don't respect it, but they recognize it. It marks you, divides the strong from the weak, the useful from the disposable. But it doesn't protect you. Not for long. Because even pain gets ignored when it becomes constant. Even screams lose their meaning when they're daily. You start learning the types. There's the pain of hunger, that hollow ache behind your ribs, like something's gnawing its way inward. It doesn't scream, it whispers. Then there's cold pain, the way your fingers sting before they go numb, the way your skin splits in quiet places, lips, eyelids, knuckles. You bleed a little every day, not enough to die, just enough to notice. There's the pain of labour, muscle pain, bone pain, the kind that makes every motion feel like dragging a weight you can't see. That's the slow pain, the silent one, the one that erodes you without sound. And then there's the pain of punishment, louder, sharper, immediate. You hear it in the yard sometimes, a man crying out, boots pounding, wooden batons landing on flesh like drums. You don't flinch anymore. You listen, measure, count the strikes. 6 means a warning. 12 means a message. Anything past 20 is a lesson for everyone. You remember your first. Your knees hit the ground before your brain understood what happened. Something in your back caught fire. You thought you'd been shot. You hadn't. It was just the stick. Thick, worn, soaked in someone else's blood. They called it educational, a necessary correction. All because you spoke out of turn, because you stepped out of line, because you hesitated for a single second when ordered to move. That's all it takes. A second, a blink, an involuntary twitch of muscle. And you earn pain. You carry it now, always, in your back, your ribs. A tooth that cracked 2 months ago and never healed. You chew on one side now. You wince with every sip of water. You clench your jaw when the wind hits just right. No dentist, no medicine, no sympathy. You mentioned it once to the infirmary guard. He said, "Pain reminds you that you're still alive." You believed him, because if the pain ever stops, you know what comes next. Some men try to hide it, wear blank faces, swallow groans, act like nothing touches them. They don't last, because pain, like everything else in the Gulag, accumulates. It builds, waits, until one day it cracks them in half like dry kindling. You've seen strong men crumble in seconds, their pride making the fall worse. Others, they accept it, embrace it, even seek it. Not because they enjoy it, because it's predictable. Everything else here is chaos. But pain is routine, a bruise for every mistake, a blister for every hour worked, a welt for every skipped breath. Pain makes sense in a world that stopped making sense the day you arrived. It's the only honest thing left. You start to listen differently. You hear a man grunt as he stands. Not just effort, injury. You hear a cough behind you in the line. Sharp, wet, lung pain. You hear a scream across the yard and know by the pitch whether it's a broken rib or a compound fracture. It becomes instinct. A sixth sense, a map of agony you carry in your head. You know who's close to snapping, who's faking it to avoid work, who's dying silently because they've accepted there's no one left to tell. And sometimes, rarely, you help. A shoulder under an arm, a word muttered when no guards are watching, a rag wrapped around a bleeding hand. but only sometimes. Because pain is also contagious. If they see you care, if they smell compassion, they'll weaponize it. They'll make you watch someone suffer just to see if you flinch. They'll force you to pick who gets the last piece of bread. They'll punish you for empathy. Because here, kindness is insubordination, and pain is order. You go to bed with it, wake up with it, walk with it, work with it. You dream of it. Sometimes, the pain in your dream is so vivid, you wake up reaching for limbs you thought were broken. Sometimes you wish they were. Because a broken limb gets you rest. 3 days, maybe 5. Then you're back in the yard, back under the weight, back in the cold, back where pain teaches, back where you can only speak it in bruises and limps and clenched teeth, back where it's the only language no one dares to misunderstand. It starts with a whisper, like everything in the Gulag does. They say someone did it, not a theft of food or tools or medicine. Something stranger. He stole fire. That's the phrase that floats between bunks and lips. The man who stole fire. But what he really stole was warmth. Not with matches, not with gasoline, with wood, fuel, logs meant for the camp's furnaces, the ones that barely keep the barracks above freezing. He worked in the timber detail, cut trees all day, watched them loaded onto sleds bound for the coal sheds and ration fires. Only one rule, every log accounted for, every splinter tracked like gold. But he found a way. They say he buried pieces under snow, wrapped them in spare cloth, carried slivers under his coat, hidden against his chest like a second heartbeat. Tiny pieces, just enough, a handful each day. It took weeks, maybe months. But he gathered enough to build his own fire, not outside too risky, too exposed. He did it inside, under the floorboards of Barrack 11, late at night when the guards' boots fell silent and the searchlights grew lazy. He'd pull up a plank, strike flint against nail, feed the tiny flame with the patience of a saint. It worked. For a while. You never saw the fire, but you felt it. That 1 week the barracks were warmer. Your breath didn't freeze on your mustache. Your hands stopped shaking by morning. Someone even joked they could feel their toes again. But no one asked questions, because asking was dangerous, and no one wanted to ruin a good thing. Until the smoke gave him away. Not much. Just a whisper through a crack in the floorboards. A sliver of grey in a sky already too full of ash. A guard saw it, raised his voice, raised his rifle, raised hell. They dragged everyone out. Made you stand barefoot in the snow while they tore the place apart. You watched them flip bunks, rip out planks, toss spoons, boots, bowls, until they found it. The hidden pit. Still warm. Ash. Coals. Evidence. The thief didn't deny it. Didn't plead. Didn't cry. He stood there, skin pale, lips cracked, boots split, and said, "I wanted to feel like a man again." The guard laughed, then broke his nose with the butt of his rifle. They didn't shoot him. That would have been too quick. They sentenced him to the box. You'd heard of the box. Everyone had. An upright coffin, built of wood, lined with frost. No room to sit. No room to lie down. They put him in for 5 days. No fire. No coat. No mercy. Just the cold. The same cold he had tried to steal from. And in this place the cold holds grudges. You passed it every day. A wooden cube behind the shed. No windows. No sound. Just ice clinging to the seams. On the 6th day they opened it. He fell out like water spilling from a shattered jug. Frozen. bent, jaw clenched around a word no one would ever hear. The guards didn't speak. They just nodded. Dragged the body off like it weighed nothing. The barracks were colder after that. Not just from the loss of heat, from the loss of what it meant. For 1 week you believed warmth was possible. For 1 week your blood didn't feel like broken glass. And now you shiver harder. Not just from cold, from absence. No one talks about him anymore. Too dangerous. Too close. Too real. But you remember. You remember the way your fingers worked that week. The way your breath didn't hurt. The way you almost felt human. You remember the man who stole winter, if only for a few nights. And you wonder, was it worth it? A few stolen flames. A few secret fires. A few hours of sleep without shaking, Rural. Was that worth the box? Worth freezing with your eyes open? Worth dying upright and alone in a pine coffin filled with your own silence? You don't know. But you know this. Some nights when the wind screams too loud and when the frost bites too deep, you think about trying it yourself. Not for rebellion, not for survival. Just to remember, even once, what it felt like, Rhett, to be warm. You don't forget the first one. You can't. Even if you try. Even if you bury it in silence, drown it in snow, erase every detail, the image still comes back. Not like a memory, like a brand, burned into the back of your eyes. It happens without warning. No sirens, no announcement, no build-up. Just a bell, louder than usual. Twice, then silence. That's how you know it's not for food, not for work. Something else. Something worse. The guards herd you into the yard. All of you. Hundreds. Boots stomping through slush. No talking. No explanation. You stand shoulder to shoulder with men who haven't spoken your name in weeks. Some whisper. Most stay quiet. They already know. The tower lights don't move this time. They fix on one spot. A cleared patch of snow. Flat. Clean. Too clean. Then you see the man, dragged out by 2 guards, wrists bound, mouth gagged, eyes wild. You recognize him. Not well, just enough. A man from Barrack 4, thin, quiet, sickly. A face you passed every day without noticing them. Now you can't stop staring. You don't know what he did. They never tell you. Treason? Sabotage? Stole food? Or maybe nothing. Maybe someone pointed. Maybe a quota wasn't met. Maybe he said the wrong thing to the wrong man on the wrong day. Doesn't matter now. He's guilty. Because he's here. And in the Gulag, guilt isn't something you prove. It's something you declare. The commandant steps forward. Big man, thick coat. Gloves, aligned with fur. He reads a statement. Not to the man. To you. Loud. Cold. Practiced. A reminder. This isn't justice. This is theatre. And the audience is you. Then comes the moment. A single guard steps forward. You know him. You've seen him beat a man unconscious over a dropped shovel. He smiles when he walks. He doesn't smile now. He raises a pistol. Black. Simple. Shiny in the cold. Points it at the man's head. Not shaking. Not rushing. You hold your breath. You want to look away, but you don't. No one does. Because there's a part of you, a horrible, broken part that needs to see it. The man blinks, mouth still gagged. You wonder what he would have said. Then the shot, no warning, no countdown, just a loud crack that tears the air like a curse. The man falls, not like in the movies. No slow collapse, no reaching for the sky. He just drops, like a puppet with cut strings, face down in the snow, blood steaming on the frost. No one moves. The yard is silent. You hear wind. You hear your own heartbeat. You hear a man sob once before someone elbows him quiet. The commandant speaks again. Something about discipline, about loyalty, about consequences. You don't hear it. All you hear is the ringing in your ears, the echo of the shot, the finality of it. Then they make you walk past the body, one by one, in line, slow, deliberate. You're not allowed to look away. You step around the corpse like a statue, boots crunching in blood that's started to freeze. His eyes are still open, mouth gagged, face twisted in a way that looks almost surprised. You want to blink, but you don't, because someone's watching. Someone always is. You return to the barracks. No one speaks. No one sits near the stove. No one eats. You just lie down, staring at the ceiling, trying not to think. But it keeps coming back. That sound. That moment. The moment when a man stops being a man to come becomes a message. You dream of it. Even weeks later. You'll hear the shot again. Feel the cold splash of blood that wasn't yours. See the man's face every time you close your eyes. And you'll remember what it taught you. You're not a prisoner. You're a prop. A body in the background. Part of the stage. Every death is a lesson. And you're the student. You didn't notice it at first. The quiet ones. The ones who used to murmur in the dark. Share crumbs of memory. Say things like, "Remember bread?" Or, "I had a dog once." Little things. Warm things. Flickers in the dark. But now, they don't say anything. You lie awake some nights and realise the room is too quiet. Not peaceful. Not calm. Just vacant. As if the air itself is holding its breath. And then you realise they've stopped talking. Not just that night. Not just to you. Entirely. There's one man in particular. Name might have been Pavel. Or Pyotr. He had stories. About a city you'd never seen. About books he once read. About music that used to play on Sundays. His voice was gentle. Didn't belong here. You remember that. Then, one day, it was gone. You asked him something once. Just routine. Shift to day or rest. He looked through you, as if the words were smoke. Didn't nod. Didn't blink. Just kept scraping something off the inside of his boot with a nail he'd found. That was a month ago. He hasn't said a word since. He still eats, still walks, still shows up for roll call. But his eyes, they're empty. Not scared, not angry. Just absent. Like the soul moved out and forgot to take the body with it. He's not the only one. They're in every barrack. Men who used to sing under their breath. Men who whispered names before falling asleep. Men who joked, once dark jokes, but still about soup or lice or the guard's crooked teeth. Now, nothing. You nod at them. No response. You offer a dry crust. No glance. They stare forward. At nothing. As if listening to a voice only they can hear. Or watching a world you can't see. The others call them dead men walking. But they're not dead. Not officially. They still move. Still work. But something broke. Snapped. Softly. No scream, no final gasp, just a closing, like a door gently shutting. And once it's shut, it doesn't open again. You used to think it took violence to break a man. A boot, a bullet, a box in the snow. But no, turns out it takes silence. Too many days without hearing your own name. Too many nights pretending your thoughts are safe. Too many mornings standing in the frost, waiting for someone to see you. Not punish you, not feed you, just see you. And when they don't, you disappear. Not all at once, bit by bit. You forget your words first, then your tone, then your will to say anything at all. And when that happens, when a man forgets how to speak, and the Gulag wins, because words are dangerous here. Not just to them, to you. Words mean memory, hope, a reason to explain, to connect. And connection is risk. You start to understand. Maybe silence is smart. Maybe it's armour. Because when you speak, people listen. And when they listen, they remember. And when they remember, someone reports it. And when someone reports it, you vanish. So maybe the quiet ones aren't broken. Maybe they're safe. But you know better. You see one of them during work detail. Same man, Pavel or Pyotr. You never did confirm. He's digging. Not fast. Not slow. Mechanical. His face is blank. His hands red. The shovel moves like it's moving him. Then it slips. He fumbles it. Lets it fall. Just a second. The guard yells. He doesn't flinch. The guard walks over. Shouts again. Nothing. Then the strike. Hard. Loud. Right across the spine. Pavel crumples. Not from pain, just physics. He hits the ground. Not a sound. Not a cry. He doesn't reach for help. Doesn't look at anyone. Just lays there. Until someone else picks up the shovel. Not for him. To finish the work. Because the work never stops. And neither does the silence. That night he doesn't return to the barracks. You don't ask. No one does. Because if he died alone. And if he lived, he's even further gone now. You wonder how close you are to that edge, that line. You still speak, but less. Your voice sounds foreign in your own mouth. You test it sometimes, a word, a phrase, just to make sure it still works. Hello, bread, mother. They echo in the air like ghosts. You haven't said your full name in months. You're scared you've forgotten it. You try to recall it once, late at night, under your breath. But the syllables don't taste right. They crumble, and you wonder, is that how it starts? First the name, then the voice, then the man. You cling to little rituals, tapping your spoon against the bowl 3 times, scratching the same mark on your bunk, humming the first note of a song and stopping before the second. Not because they help, but because they're yours. Private. Quiet. Not yet erased. Because you've seen what it looks like when a man goes quiet for good. His body still walks, still eats, still breathes, but his voice, his self, is buried under frost. And in the Gulag, no one digs graves that deep. At first they looked like gods, big coats, heavy boots, belts tight with bullets, voices sharp, commands sharper. They didn't dig, they didn't carry timber, they didn't bleed through their gloves or vomit from hunger. They pointed and men moved, they shouted and silence obeyed, they struck and no one struck back. You feared them. You hated them. You dreamed of them falling in the snow, begging. But then you started to see it. The cracks. The cold that clung to them too. The coughs they couldn't hide. The twitch in their fingers when they lit cigarettes, like their hands were shaking just beneath the surface. You started noticing how their coats, those grand, thick wool things, had patches. Some of them, anyway. Not all were elite. Not all were real guards. Some were like you. Just another body trying to stay warm in a system built to grind bone. They called them trusties. Prisoners with power, badges, armbands, sticks. No keys, no real authority. Just enough to control the others and keep themselves fed. You meet one named Sokolov. Sharp chin, flat eyes. Used to work in a factory, he says. Then in a prison. Then in this one. You ask him once, in a rare moment of privacy, "What were you before?" He shrugs. "A prisoner," he says. "Still am. I just wear a hat now." You laugh. But he doesn't. 'Cause it's not a joke. Not really. He tells you something that sticks. The trick is you think you're suffering down here. He taps your chest. But the real suffering is up here. He taps his temple. Because when you're starving, you dream of food. But when you have food and you watch everyone else starve, you dream of silence. You don't understand it then, but you will. Sokolov doesn't beat people, not often. He doesn't have to. He knows how to break men with words, with time, with just the right tone when he says, "Maybe I tell them you said something last night." That's all. He doesn't need a fist. His power is suggestion. He walks with the guards. Eats better than you. Sleeps in a corner with his own blanket. But he's not one of them. They don't salute him. They don't protect him. He's somewhere between. A ghost in both worlds. And you start to wonder, is that worse? You see it in others too. Men who earn trust, then leverage it. They carry clubs instead of shovels. They count bodies instead of bricks. They get extra soup, half a slice more bread. But it costs them. Because no one talks to them. No one trusts them. They sleep with their boots on and one eye open. They're not prisoners. Not anymore. But they're not free either. Just tools. Like shovels. Like axes. Like bullets. Expendable. Replaceable. One guard you never learned his name tells a story when he's drunk. Once a month the officers get vodka. He drinks too much. Sits on a crate. Starts mumbling. Says he used to be a teacher. History. In Minsk. Then a student accused him of saying something wrong about a speech. Next thing he knew, he was on a train. A train just like the one you rode. But instead of a camp, they gave him a uniform, a stick, a list. He's not a soldier. He's a tool. And he knows it. You watch him the next day. Sober. Red-eyed. Swinging a club with more force than usual. Because shame needs somewhere to go. And it usually goes downward. You learn fast. The guards aren't all free. Some are just prisoners with keys. Or worse, without them. Trapped in roles they didn't choose. Playing along because if they don't, they end up on your side of the fence. Or under it. One man, blonde, young, too clean, vanishes one morning. Used to bark orders like he was born to it. Then one day, nothing, no word. No transfer. Rumour says he let a prisoner go. Or fed someone extra bread. Or maybe he just looked the wrong officer in the eye. Doesn't matter. He's gone. And no one asks. Because guards disappear too. You stop seeing uniforms as armour. Start seeing them as warnings that the man inside might be dying faster than you are. Just quieter. The better the coat, the colder the heart maybe. Or maybe not. Maybe he's just colder because he's closer to the fire and still freezing. Sometimes, in the dead of night, you hear them talking outside. Not yelling, not barking, just talking. Low voices. Grown men trying to forget they were handed rifles instead of spoons. They talk about home, about ration cuts, about the man they had to beat yesterday. One of them cries. Once. You never find out who. You just stare at the ceiling and think, what if the real cage isn't these fences? What if it's the part of us that lets this happen? Sokolov gets reassigned one day. Transferred to another block. He nods to you on the way out. Doesn't speak. Doesn't smile. Just moves on. Another shadow in a place full of them. And you realise he was never your enemy. Not really. He was just one more man trying not to starve. There are worse things than dying here. You've seen them. You've stood over bodies, watched the light go out of someone's eyes, seen the blood pool into the snow. And you know that's not the worst fate. Death is clean. Death is simple. The worst thing is when no one remembers you were alive to begin with. It starts with a name. Yours. It's been months, maybe years since you heard someone say it. Not your number. Not a nickname. Your real name. The one your mother whispered when she kissed your forehead. The one you wrote on school papers. The one that used to mean you. You say it to yourself sometimes, under your breath, just to keep it alive. Because if you forget it, what's left? But even you start to doubt. Was it Nikolai? Or Alexander? Or was that the boy you shared a bunk with 2 winters ago? You think of home, but it blurs. Like an old photograph left too long in the rain. Faces smudge. Voices fade. The streets lose their names. You try to remember the exact colour of your mother's eyes. You can't. You tell yourself it doesn't matter. But it does. It matters. Because you're still here. But they don't know that. And maybe they never will. You used to expect letters. You used to scan the guard's hand for envelopes during mail call. At first nothing came. You told yourself it was the sensors, the weather, a mistake. Then the seasons changed. And still nothing. Now, they don't even bother reading your number, because no one's writing. And you? You've stopped hoping. You once knew a man. Anton, you think. He was a teacher. Wrote letters every Sunday. Always the same message. Still alive. Still love you. Still waiting. He'd fold them neatly. Address them with care. Hand them over like relics. They never left the camp. You knew that. He probably did too. But he kept writing this. Because it reminded him he still existed. Then, one Sunday, he didn't write. Didn't even pick up the pencil. You asked him why. He said, "I think they've forgotten me." Then he smiled, not sad, just tired, and said, "I think I'm starting to forget me too." 3 weeks later he was gone. No one knows how. Maybe exposure. Maybe despair. Maybe both. You heard one of the guards say, he was quiet, easy clean-up. That was his eulogy. The camp doesn't bury the dead. Not with names. Not with care. A shallow pit. A wooden marker. No ceremony. Sometimes not even that. Just a pile of snow over a sunken patch of earth. No one tells their family. No one marks a calendar. No one lights a candle. Because in this place, the only thing cheaper than food is memory. You felt it creeping in. That slow fade. You forget how old you are, not because you're hiding it, because time here isn't made of days anymore. It's made of survival units. One loaf, one bruise, one sunrise. That's how you measure the passage of time, not in months, but in meals missed, bones broken, teeth lost. You've forgotten birthdays, holidays, whole seasons. You used to mark time with scratches on your bunk, then on your spoon, then on your wrist. Now, you don't mark it at all, because you're afraid to see how much of you is gone. There are men here who don't even flinch when their name is called, because they've forgotten what it sounds like. You know one, a big man, worked in the mines. Everyone called him Bear. He used to laugh, tell stories so loud they echoed off the walls. Even the guards smiled sometimes. Then one day his name was called, not his nickname, his real name, and he just stood there, confused, like it was a stranger's. Someone had to tap him on the shoulder, point at the guard, say, "That's you." He didn't move, didn't speak, just nodded slowly, and walked forward like a man walking into someone else's life. He stopped talking after that, still worked, still ate, still moved, but that fire, the one that made him him, was out. And all because no one had said his name in so long he forgot it belonged to him. You think about that a lot. How it's not the beatings that kill you, not cold, not the hunger. It's the forgetting, the quiet erosion of yourself, the slow, steady removal of every detail that ever made you more than just a body. And once enough is stripped away, no one notices when the rest goes missing. You could vanish tonight, slip out, fall in a ditch, disappear into a snowstorm. Tomorrow, they'd count heads, find one short, shrug. Someone would take your bunk, your spoon, your boots. You'd be gone, but not missed. Because in the Gulag, being forgotten isn't an accident, it's the goal. And that's the part that hurts the most. Not that they took your freedom, not that they broke your body, but that they're slowly, deliberately erasing you. You used to know what day it was. Back then, on the outside, you'd check a calendar, mark birthdays, count weekends, hope for holidays. You lived by time. You trusted it. Then you came here, and time stopped being something you used. It became something that used you. You don't know what day it is now. Could be a Tuesday. Could be January. Could be the same Thursday that started months ago and never let go. There are no clocks in the Gulag. No calendars. No seasons you can rely on, just varying shades of cold and slightly less cold. You mark time by different things now. The number of frostbitten fingers, the depth of snow on the roof, the sharpness of wind, how long it's been since the last man died. Those are your milestones. You remember the first month clearly, every detail, every minute. Because your brain hadn't yet accepted this was forever. But then something changes. The days start bleeding together. Not metaphorically, literally. You wake up and forget if you've already worked that shift, if you already ate that meal, if you had that dream last night or 2 months ago. It all folds together into a single endless grey. You stop counting days, start counting losses. 3 teeth, 1 friend, 6 kilos, half your voice. Time in the Gulag is not counted forward. It's measured backward by what you've left behind. You watch men arrive, eyes sharp, posture proud. They tell themselves they'll survive this. that they'll count the months, mark the days. You check back in 6 weeks. They're hollow, pale, wrists smaller, voices flatter. They've learned. Here, time doesn't pass. It presses, like ice on a roof beam, like a weight on your chest you can't quite move. You feel it in your bones, literally. Joints that don't bend anymore, a knee that cracks every time you kneel to lift. Your spine, it doesn't stretch when you wake. It just grinds, because the weight isn't just on your back, it's in it. You hear someone once, an older man, whisper, "The years here, they don't go forward, they just go down, into the body, into the soul." You don't know what he meant at first, but later, as you sit on your bunk staring at the wall you've seen 1,000 times, but still can't fully describe, you get it. Time becomes a tunnel, narrow, dark, without direction. You don't move through it. It moves through you, and it changes you. Before, back home, time aged you gently, wrinkles around the eyes, a little grey in your beard, jokes about feeling old. Here, time is savage. It robs you, not all at once. Just enough each day that you don't notice until one morning you can't lift your arm, or remember your brother's name, or speak without stuttering. Time breaks you here, but it's polite about it. Quiet. Professional. Efficient. You see it in the mirror when you dare to look. Your reflection feels like a stranger. Sunken eyes. Yellow teeth. Skin like paper stretched over wire. You ask yourself, how long has it been? And the worst part? You don't know. There's a man in your barracks' beard to his chest, knuckles like rocks. No one knows how long he's been here. 7 years? 10? He shrugs when asked. Says, long enough to stop asking. You believe him? Some say they've only been here 6 months. But you look at them, you see the 1,000-yard stare, the twitch in the hand, the limp in the walk, and you know they've lived a lifetime since the train doors opened. Time here is not chronological. It's psychological. 1 week can feel like an hour. A day can feel like a year. Especially the bad days. The freezing ones. The ones where your hands don't work and the wind is biting and the guard has that look in his eye. Those days, they last forever. And then they happen again and again. And you stop asking, when will this end? Because you start hearing another voice inside you whisper, what if it doesn't? Some men try to fight it, markings scratched into walls, counting meals, scraping tallies into their spoons. But the system knows. It waits. Eventually they miscount, miss a day, a mark fades in the frost, and just like that, they're gone. Still breathing, still walking, but gone. Because time is the thread tying you to yourself. And when that thread breaks, you unravel. You see a man crack once, young, too young, used to hum to himself, used to scratch the date into a plank beneath his bunk. Then one day, he gets it wrong. A fellow prisoner tells him it's the 18th, not the 17th. The young man just stares. His whole world built around those tiny numbers, the only thing keeping the years from swallowing him whole. That night he screams in his sleep. The next morning he won't move. They drag him to his shift. He won't lift the pick, won't blink. By nightfall he's gone, his bunk empty. Time killed him, just like that. You don't track days anymore. You track pain, each ache a marker, each scar a date, each beat of your heart a ticking, slowing clock. You remember a line you heard once from somewhere distant. Time heals all wounds. Not here. Here, time is the wound, and it never stops bleeding. At first, your body is the only thing you trust. You don't trust the guards. You don't trust the food. You don't trust the men beside you, whispering in the dark. But your body, that's yours. The last piece of you they haven't taken. It digs. It walks. It swallows just enough to keep going. You tell yourself, if I keep moving, I live. And it works. For a while. You carry logs on your back like an animal. You pull sleds until your hands blister open. You swing a pickaxe at frozen earth so hard your teeth chatter in your skull. You push. Every day. Every hour. Because this place rewards movement and punishes stillness. Stop and you're weak. Fall and you're done. So you fight. With knees that crack. With fingers that won't close all the way. With a spine that bends wrong every time you rise. But one morning, it happens. You wake up and your ankle won't move. Not twist. Not flex. You swing your legs down. Stand. And the pain shoots through your body like a scream that never makes it to your throat. You don't yell. Can't afford to. You just wince. Hard. The man above you on the bunk hears it. Doesn't say anything. But you know he knows. And now you're marked. They don't need paperwork. They don't need x-rays. They see the limp. They see the favouring. They smell the weakness like wolves smell blood in the snow. By the time you reach the work site, it's too late. A guard sees you drag your foot. He points. Calls over a trusty. You brace. But no stick. No slap. Just a smile. You've still got one good leg, he says. Use it. You nod. Not because you agree. Because there's no other answer. You start shoveling. Every movement sends lightning up your side. You count the seconds between stabs of pain. 30 seconds. 20. 12. Then none. Just constant fire. You think, tomorrow it'll be better. But it isn't. It's worse. And your body, the same one you dragged through winter and frostbite and sleepless nights, starts to betray you. Not loudly, not with drama, with subtle vicious precision. A toe goes black. A molar cracks. Your shoulder refuses to lift anything heavier than a spoon. You adapt. As best you can. Use the other side. Chew on the left. Dig slower then faster to hide it. But every adaptation costs something. You miss your quota. You lose your extra crust. You get reassigned not to easier work, but worse. Punishment detail. Wheelbarrow patrol. Night shifts in the latrine trench. Because in the Gulag you don't get rest when you break. You get buried deeper. And the worst part? No one helps, because they're all watching their own bodies start to fall apart. One man's hands are swollen like fruit about to burst. Another has a cough so wet it sounds like he's drowning. A third has a swollen eye yellow, puffy, half shut, and he still swings the axe every morning. You want to help them. You almost do. But you don't. Because you need that ration. That bunk. That hour of sleep. So, you look away, like they do when your leg buckles, when you lean on a wall and pretend you're just tired. Because in this place, every man's body is a dam holding back death. And once the cracks show, no one wants to be standing next to you when it breaks. The infirmary, it's a joke, a punishment with beds. You go in for a cold. You come out with pneumonia. If you come out at all, they treat you with water and silence. Sometimes they amputate, no anaesthetic. Just a rag to bite. You heard of one man who begged for death halfway through. He got it. Not out of mercy. Out of boredom. The medic was tired. Said, Not worth the wood for the crutches. So, no, you don't go to the infirmary. You strap your ankle tighter. You keep your cough quiet. You learn to walk slow in the morning, fast when watched, limp only in the dark. But your body knows. It knows. And eventually it gives up pretending. It swells. It bruises without reason. You look down and see blood under your nails. Your skin changes colour in places it shouldn't. You breathe harder, shorter, shallower. Every day it takes a little more effort to climb the bunk, to swing your legs down, to tie the rags around your feet. And still you move. Because the day you stop, the day you fall and don't get up in time, they drag you. And once you're being dragged, you're not a prisoner anymore. You're scrap. No one asks if you're okay. They just take your spoon, your spot, your number. They cross it off the ledger. Burn your name out of the record. And the next day, someone else digs your trench. You think about that as you work, with hands that can barely hold a tool, with feet that bleed every step, with a spine that screams every time you bend. You're a machine with broken parts, a weapon with a cracked handle, a tool grinding itself into dust. But still you swing, still you lift, still you dig. Because you've got one job left. Keep moving, until your body says otherwise. And when it does, that's it. Because in the Gulag, your body is the only thing you own. And when it stops working, you're done being a person. You're just waste. There's no ceremony, no last rites, no final curtain. One day, he's there. The next, he isn't. You don't even notice at first. Not because you're cold, but because it happens so often. That man in the corner bunk, the one who used to hum under his breath, gone. The quiet one with the bad hip and the better jokes, gone. No shouting, no stretcher, no bell, just an empty space. A spoon without a hand, a blanket folded too neatly. And somehow life goes on. Because it has to. That's the difference here. Not just between life and death, but between those who make it and those who don't. And it's not about strength. Not really. You've seen the strongest men crumble. Muscles don't stop frostbite. Broad shoulders still break when you load too much onto them. You've seen smart men die too. Teachers, doctors, engineers. Brains don't help when there's nothing to fix. No one to teach. No tools to use. No systems left to outthink. It's not about goodness either. The kind ones. The ones who gave their bread away. Who lifted others up from the snow. Who whispered encouragement in the dark. They go first. Because kindness draws attention. And in the Gulag, attention kills. So what is it? What keeps someone breathing when everyone else stops? You start to see patterns. The quiet ones. The almost invisible ones. Not cowards. Not mute. Just low to the ground. They don't argue. Don't joke. Don't beg. They watch. They wait. They move like fog, slow and deliberate. Unnoticed. They take the broken boots but wrap them tighter. They water down their soup to make it last longer. They say just enough to be left alone, but never so much that someone remembers their name. And when something bad happens, a beating, a death, a shift change, they are already gone from the scene. You envy them because they've figured it out. How to survive without being seen. Then there are the others, the ones who don't. Some fight too hard. They rebel. They spit in a guard's face. They whisper escape too loudly. You admire them. You want to be like them. But they don't last. Others just let go. One morning they don't stand for roll call. They stare at their hands for hours. They stop chewing mid-bite, and then they're gone. A slow death, not by bullet, not by cold, by surrender. You once asked an old man, "What's the secret?" He laughed, a dry, awful sound. "There's no secret," he said. "Just decisions, tiny ones, over and over." What kind of decisions? When to speak, when to stay silent, when to eat now and when to save it, when to help someone and when to turn away. You hated that answer, because it means survival isn't heroic. It's strategic, and sometimes it's ugly. You saw one man hoard food. Not much. Just a crust here, a sliver there. He watched his bunkmate starve to death. Never offered a bite. A week later he was still breathing. Still standing. Still surviving. Another man, same barrack, shared everything. His bread, his coat, his strength. He died in his sleep. Smiling, they said. Dead all the same. And you? You're somewhere in between. You've lied. You've stolen. You've ignored cries for help. And you've also given when you shouldn't. Spoken when it was dangerous. Put yourself between a boot and another man's skull. You don't know what that makes you. A coward? A hero? Or just someone still here? And maybe that's all survival is. Not about morals or muscles, but presence, still breathing, still waking up, still showing up at the gate when your number's called. Every day you look around and count. How many are left? How many faces you used to know are still here? Each week, fewer. Each month the barracks stretch wider. Not because they've grown, but because the bodies inside them haven't. You remember names like you remember dreams, faint, scattered, gone by morning, and it terrifies you. Because what if one day you disappear and no one notices? What if you become one of the ones who don't make it? A silent statistic. A hole in the snow. A spoon passed to the next man like you never mattered. And yet, you keep moving. You patch your boot again. You choose slower to trick your stomach. You let the blow land instead of blocking it because resisting might mean worse. You do things you're not proud of. You don't do things you wish you had. And every night you ask the same question. Am I one of the ones who make it? There's no answer. Not here, only time. And time doesn't speak. It only takes. You think you figured it out. Not everything that's impossible, but enough. Enough to stay quiet, stay useful, stay alive. You know when to speak, when to look down, when to shovel slower, when to nod without agreeing. You've learned the rhythm of the place. The rotations, the rituals. It's not comfortable, but it's predictable. And in the Gulag, predictability is a kind of safety. But then it changes. Just like that. The guard at the gate, the one who usually checks boots and nods you through, he isn't there. A new man. You don't know his name. You don't know his face. He doesn't nod. He hits. No warning. No accusation. You step too slow. His fist lands in your ribs like a hammer. No one says anything. And you realise whatever rule you thought was real just broke. You limp to the work zone and try to recalibrate. New guard. New routine. Okay. Then the quotas change. Same work. Less time. More output. You ask a question cautiously. What changed? The foreman spits. Nothing changed. Everything changed. That's the answer. Clear as ice. Sharp as a blade. And it keeps happening. The schedule shifts without notice. Breakfast moved an hour earlier. Work call starts during darkness now. Someone says it's to save coal. Someone else says it's punishment. No one actually knows. And you're not supposed to ask. Because here, the worst crime isn't disobedience. It's expectation. If you expect fairness, you'll be punished. If you expect logic, you'll go mad. So, you stop expecting. You just react, like an animal. You sniff the air. You read faces. You listen for tones, not words. You sense the shift before it arrives, because it always does. A new form, a new list. A new phrase shouted in Russian that no one explains. Suddenly, you're not allowed to talk at night. Or eat outside the mess hall. Or leave your bunk until a horn sounds. They say it's about order, discipline. But you know better. It's about control. It's about keeping you uncertain. Because a man who doesn't know what's coming obeys faster. You remember a story, passed from bunk to bunk like contraband. A prisoner once carved a chess set from bread, used it to teach others, kept minds sharp, kept hope alive. Then one day, a guard caught him mid-game, took the pieces, smashed the board, beat him so badly he couldn't remember his own name for weeks. Why? Because chess has rules, logic, structure. And the Gulag can't afford that. It can't allow that. Not here. Not where chaos is the leash. You learn to ration your food. Now they change the portion sizes without warning. You learn to sleep during second shift. Now they change the barracks wake-up order. You learn to avoid certain guards. Now those guards are gone, replaced by worse. And every time you start to adjust, they change it again. Because if the rules stay the same long enough, you start to believe there's a system. And belief? That's dangerous. Belief leads to questions. Questions lead to rebellion. Even silent rebellion. Even in your mind. So they change the rules not because they need to, but because they can. One day, a man in your barrack gets caught stealing. He's beaten, of course, publicly, left bleeding in the snow. Standard. The next day, another man steals. Same thing. But he's promoted. Given better boots. Moved to work detail inside the supply shack. Why? No one knows. He won't say. And now? You're all terrified. Because the rules aren't just unstable, they're reversed. Sometimes you're punished for obeying. Sometimes you're rewarded for disobeying. It's not about crime. It's about control. You learn not to follow orders. Not to defy them, but to anticipate the mood behind them. To obey not what's said, but what's wanted. It's a different skill. A survival tactic. Like reading weather patterns in the dark. Some men learn it. They live. Others don't. They don't last long. You remember one, tall, young, full of fire, refused to salute a guard one morning. Not rudely, just forgot. Was half asleep. The guard beat him senseless. Broken jaw. Teeth in the snow. The next morning a man saluted too early. That same guard slapped him down, shouted, "You trying to mock me?" And everyone around just froze. Because that was the moment it all clicked. There is no correct answer. There is no safe action. There's only now. Only this moment. This guard. This mood. This hour. And what was true yesterday may get you killed today. So you learn to live in the present. Not in a spiritual way. Not in the way monks talk about peace and breath and stillness. You live in the present like a mouse, sniffing every second for danger, eyes wide, heart racing. Because here, in this place, the present is a trap that keeps resetting. And your job? Don't step wrong. Don't assume. Don't relax. Because in the Gulag the rules aren't broken. They're meant to break. You always swore you'd never become them. The guards. The informants. The bullies in prisoner clothes. You told yourself you'd survive, but not at the cost of your soul. And for a while that's true. You hold the line. You help where you can. You whisper kindness into the frost. But the line doesn't break all at once. It bends. A little, at first. A man stumbles next to you on a march. You think to help him, but you don't. Because your ribs still ache from the last time you slowed down. You tell yourself it's survival, not betrayal, not yet. Another day, the foreman's looking for someone to blame. He glances your way. You speak too quickly, too defensively. You mention a name, not because that man deserves punishment, but because it isn't you. Later the man returns with a bruise under his eye and hate in his voice. You can't meet it. You look away. You tell yourself you didn't mean to. That it was reflex. Instinct. You didn't become the monster. You just leaned. And the leaning continues. One day, you get an extra ration. A mix-up. A rare moment of luck. You could share it. You don't. Because your stomach's been twisting for days. Your vision's been blurring at the edges. And that second spoon of soup might just keep your heart beating through the night. So you eat. Alone. Fast. Quiet. And for the first time you feel full. But you also feel something else, something cold. Something wrong. You push it down. Another day a man collapses near you. Old. Skin like parchment. He doesn't speak. Just lays there twitching. You know if you help him, you'll be late to your own shift. You'll be whipped. Or worse. So you step over him. Carefully. Your boot leaves a print next to his skull. And you don't look back. You used to be horrified by men like this. Men who turned a blind eye. Men who saved themselves first, second, always. But now, you're starting to understand them. Not agree. Not admire. Just recognize. Because the Gulag doesn't transform you with fire. It carves you. Slowly. Like ice-shaped stone. And it whispers as it works. Just this once. You had no choice. Anyone would have done the same. And maybe they would have. Maybe you're not worse than the others. But you're not better either. You start watching the trusties. The ones who keep their coats longer. The ones who get second helpings. The ones who never seem quite as bruised as the rest of you. They're not kind. Not soft. But they're still here. And sometimes that feels like the only thing that matters. One of them, a man named Yuri, used to sleep 2 bunks down. You hated him. Big arms. Crooked teeth. Laughed when others suffered. Now he's got a badge, a baton, and a warm scarf around his throat. One night you catch his eye. And for a second, just a second, you envy him. Because he won. He bent before he broke. He stepped over bodies, betrayed his own, handed out beatings with a grin, and the system rewarded him for it. You lie awake thinking, what would I trade to survive like that? Your shame? Your silence? Your soul? You tell yourself no. But the fact that you're even asking the question means something's already changed. You're not who you were. Not anymore. You remember your mother's voice, once soft, now faint. You remember telling yourself, I'll never hurt someone who doesn't deserve it. But now, you don't know what deserve means. You watched a man beaten half to death for coughing during roll call. You saw another freeze because his boots were stolen in the night. Who deserved that? No one. Everyone. It doesn't matter anymore. Because in here, right and wrong don't exist. There's only pain, and how close you are to it. One morning a guard tosses you a choice. He's short on men for an overnight detail. You'll get extra food, less hard labour for the week. All you have to do is watch over the new arrival. Keep them in line. You ask, what does that mean? He says, you'll find out. You say yes, because your knees hurt. Your fingers are infected, and you haven't felt full in months. That night, you stand by the barracks door. You hold a stick. You wear a different armband. You don't beat anyone. You don't bark orders. But when one of the new men collapses in the snow and pleads for help, you don't move. Because you can't. Because everyone is watching, including the guard who gave you the stick. And you know, if you break ranks now, you go back to being a target. So you do nothing, just like all the others. And when you return to your bunk warmer, safer, fed, you wonder, is this it? Is this how it happens? Not with violence, not with screaming, but with silence and survival, and 1,000 little choices that lead you further and further from the man you used to be. Until one day, someone looks at you and says, he used to be kind. And no one believes them. Not even you. They say the war is over. You hear it second hand. A whisper passed down from a guard to a cook to a prisoner to you. There was a speech. There were parades. Somewhere there was dancing in the streets. The fascists are defeated. The Red Army is victorious. The motherland is safe. And you're still digging. The day they say it's over, you're knee-deep in half-frozen mud. Your pickaxe is dull. Your back is screaming. Your fingers are bleeding. You pause just for a second. Look up at the sky. It's still grey. Still empty. Still indifferent. You think, maybe now things will change. Maybe they'll let you go. Maybe someone will remember your name. Maybe they'll send a train with heat and bread and real news. But nothing changes. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not the week after. Because the war out there is not the war in here. Here, the rules stay the same. The rations stay low. The beatings stay frequent. Peace outside doesn't mean peace here. You see a new prisoner arrive. Young, barely 18. Uniform still fresh with creases. A soldier. He doesn't belong here, not yet. You can see it in his posture. He still thinks this is a mistake. Still thinks he can appeal. You don't talk to him, but you hear the story. He survived Stalingrad, fought through Kursk, made it all the way to Berlin, came home, said the wrong thing to the wrong officer, mentioned how many men they lost, how poor the equipment was, how little sense the orders made, and now he's here, next to you, shoveling snow into a ditch that doesn't need clearing. He's not a hero anymore. He's a number. He still tries for a while, still writes letters, still corrects guards when they call him traitor, but the camp doesn't care about his medals. And after a few months, neither does he. You pass him one night. He's staring at a knot in the wall, not moving, not blinking. He's one of you now. The war ended, but not for him, not for any of you. There's no demobilization here, no welcome home, no reconstruction. There's just routine, a different kind of war, fought with hunger instead of bullets, with frost instead of fire, with silence instead of sirens. You hear rumours, of men being released, amnesties, reforms. But rumours are wind in this place. They rattle the walls but never open the door. One man says he knows someone who was freed last month. Another says it's a lie that man was just transferred north. Another still says it doesn't matter. No one ever really gets out. And in a way, he's right. Because even if you leave, you don't leave. Not really. You carry it in your bones, in your scars, in your silence. You carry it in the way you flinch at loud voices, in the way you hoard bread even when you don't need to, in the way you forget how to speak your own name out loud. One day, the guards hang a flag near the gate, red and proud. The sickle and hammer against the white sky. It flaps like a warning. You ask a trusted prisoner, "What's the occasion?" He shrugs. "Victory Day," he says. You want to laugh, but you don't. Because what would it sound like? Who are you to celebrate victory? What did you win? Your fingers are crooked. Your back is bent. Your name is gone from every record that mattered. And you can't even remember the last time you heard your own voice raised above a whisper. A younger man tries to sing that night, something patriotic, from the old days. He gets a cuff across the head before he finishes the first line. "We don't sing here," the guard says. "That's the end of it." Because even now, with the war supposedly over, you're still not safe. You're still in uniform, just a different kind. You still march, still obey, still brace for impact. The world moved on. You didn't. And there's a part of you, the part that still dreams, the part that still remembers music and colour and spring, that starts to go quiet. Not die. Just shut down. Because there's only so long you can live in hope before it turns toxic. Hope is dangerous here. Hope gets men killed. The ones who believe in amnesties, in orders from Moscow, in the law. They ask too many questions. Stand too close to the wire. Look guards in the eye too long. And then they vanish. One morning they're there. That night their bunk is bare. You learn to stop hoping out loud. Then you learn to stop hoping at all. Because if the war ended, then what's all this? If peace has come, why are men still dying? You think about your family, if they're alive, if they know where you are, if they celebrated. You imagine them at a table. Bread, soup, candles, laughter. You try to picture yourself there, but you can't. You're too thin, too tired, too far gone. The man you were, he died in the camp, somewhere between the second winter and the third hunger. And what's left is something else, still walking, still breathing, still counting days that don't mean anything. The war ends, the flags wave, the guns fall silent, but not for you. Because for you, the Gulag is the war, and the enemy is everything. The cold, the silence, the rules that change, the rules that don't, and worst of all, the part of you that's starting to believe this is normal. You think you'll get used to it, the vanishing. You don't. At first, every time someone goes missing, it rattles you. You look over at the empty bunk. You think maybe they're just sick. Maybe they'll be back tomorrow. They never are. You learn fast. No one leaves the Gulag with a handshake. No one gets a farewell speech. No gold watch. No final meal. They just stop being there. One morning they're coughing beside you, stealing warmth from the fire barrel. The next, their blanket is folded. Or not. Sometimes the guards don't even bother. Sometimes the body is still warm when they drag it out. And that's it. No one talks about it. No one asks, because asking is dangerous. Asking means attention. Attention means suspicion. Suspicion means punishment. So you learn to let go. Fast. You stop memorizing names. Stop forming attachments. You tell yourself it's better that way. That not caring means not hurting, but it does hurt. Every time. It's just a different kind of pain. A quieter one. A hollow ache that doesn't scream, it lingers. There was a man named Radek. Came from somewhere west, all awkward, kind. He gave you half his bread once when you were coughing blood. Didn't ask for anything in return. Just said, "We're all bleeding the same here." One morning you woke up and his bunk was empty. Blanket gone. Spoon gone. You asked the man above him what happened. He shrugged. Might have froze, might have crossed the line. That's what they say. Crossed the line. As if death was just another border. Another checkpoint you can vanish through. You never found out. You still think about him. Especially when you're coughing. Especially when you need warmth. Especially when you look at your bread and think, would I have given it away? There are no funerals in the Gulag. Just process. Sometimes they toss the body in a trench. Sometimes they don't. You once watched two men carry a corpse past the barracks, wrapped in a blanket, arms stiff, toes blue. They didn't cry, didn't speak. Just dropped him into a pit behind the fence and walked away. By the next day the pit was full of snow, as if the ground itself couldn't be bothered to remember. There's a man in your barracks now, Gina. Older. Quiet. Watches everything. One night you ask him how many men he's seen die. He doesn't answer right away. Just stares at the ceiling, tracing cracks with his eyes. Finally he says, "Enough that I don't say goodbye anymore." I just nod. You ask why. He says, "Because goodbyes are for people who leave doors open. Here they only close." You think about that for weeks, and he's right. No one leaves here. They vanish. They dissolve. They get erased. You saw a man scream once when they took his friend away, dragged him out into the cold for insubordination. The man fought, begged, clung to the doorway like a child. The guards beat him bloody, left him in the mud. That night his friend never came back. And the man who screamed, he never screamed again. You learned something that night. Grief is punishable here. Love too. So you tuck it all inside. You lose men in ones and twos. But sometimes it's all at once. An avalanche in the mine. A fire in a barracks. A typhus outbreak in Block 17. And suddenly half the camp is gone. No announcements. No memorials. The next shift goes on like nothing happened. Work detail doesn't change. The soup still boils. The guards still bark orders. You're expected to move on. So you do. But the ghosts pile up. You carry them with you. In your hands. In your back. In the creases of your coat where their breath used to warm the air beside you. You dream about them. Not always clearly. Just shapes. Silhouettes. A voice in the dark saying your name before it vanishes. And still you don't say goodbye. Because there's no time for it. No space. Even if you could, what would you say? Goodbye? Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. None of it fits. None of it matters. The camp moves forward. Always. And you're expected to keep moving with it. Even when your chest feels hollow. Even when your eyes burn and your throat won't open. You once made a grave marker for a boy who used to sing quietly in the mornings, didn't know his name. Didn't matter. You carved a single line into the wood. He mattered. You hid it behind the latrine trench. It was gone the next day. Maybe a guard burned it. Maybe a prisoner needed firewood. Maybe the wind took it, but you felt it disappear. And after that, you stopped trying. Because memory here is fragile. Too fragile. It's easier to forget. Easier to move on. Easier to survive. But late at night, when the snow outside falls too softly and the wind doesn't scream, you let yourself remember. Not out loud. Not for long. Just a face. Just a voice. Just enough to say, I still see you. Even if no one else does. Even if the camp never did. Because in a place where there are no goodbyes, sometimes remembering is the goodbye. Silent, wordless, real. And sometimes it's the only piece of them that survives. You made it, or someone like you did. They opened the fence, handed back the coat they stole years ago, said the sentence was finished. No apology, no acknowledgement, no explanation. Just a nod, a door, and the long walk home. If home still exists. You step outside the wire, but the cold comes with you. Not the kind on your skin, the kind that settled inside. Because there's no going back. Not really. The Gulag doesn't end at the fence. It follows you. In your posture. In your silence. In the way you flinch when someone says your name too loudly. You live. But not the same way. Not fully. You sit in rooms where people complain about weather, about politics, about bread that's too hard. And you nod. And you smile. But your hands are clenched under the table, remembering what real hunger is. They say time heals all things. But time didn't free you. Time was the cell. And some part of you, the part that counted footsteps in the snow and chewed ration bread until your teeth bled, that part never left. There are no monuments for you, no parades, no chapters in the history books. But we remember, here, in the dark, in the silence, in the stories we tell when the world goes quiet enough to hear them. If this story stayed with you, share it. Subscribe. Not for the numbers. Not for the clicks. But because someone should remember what happened when the world looked away. And you? You're not in your bed anymore. You're not in the camp either. But the frost on your breath still feels the same. Sleep tight. And don't forget, some stories weren't meant to comfort you, only to be carried.